I love that little intro.
And we're live, dude. We're going.
Here we go.
That's right. Welcome back.
Yes, thanks for having me twice. This is such an honor. I feel like such an important person.
I don't know, but I mean, everybody that is on the other side of a screen for me, I have learned to make an important person to me. I hope that you feel that way. So I'm glad that you do feel that way.
Yeah, I do.
Welcome to the show, everyone else who's listening. If this is your first episode, go check out the show description for what the heck we do. But essentially, we interview people who sold books door to door. So it's kind of like a little niche, like Tiger King. So if you have no idea what it is, you're in for a ride. You know, every episode's different. But man, I'm excited to have you back on the show. And it's good to see you. Good to see that you're doing well. I've seen you on social media doing some really cool stuff. You've been crushing it. I'm going to tell people a little bit of who we got in the house today. So Joe Ignace is with us today. It's the second episode. If you guys want to go check out the first one, I'm sure we're going to maybe talk about some of the same stories and maybe some new stories, or just who knows. We never really know where this goes. So, but he has been on before. So if you guys if you want more Joe after this, you're like, wow, this was awesome. I want more Joe in my life. You can go back to Joe's first episode and get more Joe in your life. But Joe sold for 7 summers with the TD organization from 2016 to 2023 and went to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, where he currently lives, originally from Johnson City, Tennessee. And now he's doing the Knowledge Gap Consulting Services, and it's a coaching business. But and I'm curious to see how this whole thing developed, because last time I talked to you, you were doing like a podcast, and you were working with college kids trying to teach them some really cool things that they need to know for life. So I'm excited to jump into all of that. Number 2 is his favorite scroll from the Augmentino's Greatest Salesman in the World. I Will Greet This Day with Love My Heart, which, you know what a classic. Just you gotta love it. But more than anything, I'm excited to talk to you today, man, because your book is out. So if this is airing, it means your book is out. So you guys can go get that book. It's called The Problem with Potential. I got to rephrase that because we just had Aaron Bowe recently. So his thing was called Potential Driven. I got the Problem with Potential. And if you guys want to get that book, here's how you do it. There's 2 ways. You can just scroll down and tap on the link below, and you'll notice it's joeignace.com/the problem with potential. You can go find it there. And as well as, I think it's cool when an author does what Joe's doing, which is laying out a little bit more of the background of how the book was processed and what the inspiration for the book was, rather than just going to Amazon and looking for it. Like, go read a little bit more about it so you can kind of get that knowledge from the inside out. At least it sounds like that's kind of how you've designed it. But tell me a little bit more about that. Let's jump in right there at that point and tell me about this book writing process of becoming an author. What a wild ride, huh? Hey guys, we are brought to you by Cardinal Senior Benefits, who have helped over 60 alumni earn over $45 million in commissions the last 5.5 years. They started with 2 book guys, Nick Dale and Pedro Vega, by helping agents build more reliable 6-figure incomes in the final expense life insurance industry, and are doing it sustainably with a pretty solid work-life balance. Cardinal's pretty grateful for wrapping up another amazing year. They've been doubling in sales pretty much every year since they started, and they're excited to announce that they've expanded their agents and clients into a more meaningful way. They're pretty passionate about helping agents build their own book of business with commissions, not just from life insurance, but also from annuities and Medicare as well, all while serving that same low-stress demographic, those empty nesters that we're taught to skip when we were doing pre-approach in the book field. Cardinal helps those older folks protect their loved ones. So everyone knows that you can earn 6 figures your first year at Cardinal, but now agents can add an additional 6-figure residual income by their 3rd and 5th year agents. And they're more excited than ever for the future and building their best year in 2024. If you'd like to hear more, make sure you check out the link below, or you can contact us and we'll put you in touch with them. All right, back to the show.
Oh my gosh, what a wild ride. Yeah, I mean, you'll have to tell me your story too, because we've never got into how you wrote your book and all that kind of fun stuff. But man, yeah, it's been a 21-month slog.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it took me. I started writing The Problem with Potential, How to Stop Overthinking, Get Out of Your Own Way, last March. So March of, what is that, 2022? We're almost on 2024. You know, I was inspired to write. I don't know if you have to tell me you'll have to tell me your inspiration moment. But my inspiration for writing is my book. My wife wrote a children's book and published it in like 3 weeks or something, or like a couple months.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, I'm going to go. And it's for foster care. It's called Lily's Story. And it's just helping kids who are in the foster care system have something that they can own and that goes through their story too. So that way they just don't feel so alone. And then she puts all the profit into, nonprofits and helping people in the foster care system.
Wow. That's wild.
She did. Yeah, she did that. And I was like, I've always wanted to write a book, and I want to write like 5 or 10 maybe. I just enjoy the medium, and I've gotten so much out of books. It's just life changing. Sometimes you read that one book and you actually apply the thing, and you're like, wow, that was so smart. I'm a big believer that everything, that you want to do in life is written somewhere. So I hope to be, that for someone else, just give it back, pay it forward type thing. But I started, this is what I would not recommend. So I'll just go through the steps of what happened. I'm not going to say they're good. Okay. I would not recommend you go through these steps. I would do it completely different for the next book that I write. But I basically just got inspired. I was a DSL at the time when I was starting at Southwestern, because I'm not that far removed. And man, there's just these things that kept coming up with the college students that I would work with that I used to struggle with personally. And then all the families I would meet. Fun fact too, this is a way to sound really cool at a bar with your friends, or try to introduce yourself with your Southwestern experience instead of saying, I did door-to-door sales and feeling weird. If you did Southwestern for any number of years, let's say 5 plus 6, 7, I did the math, and I met through 7 years of selling books and recruiting full-time, 22,000 people. And then I did research. I did research on the average number of people that people will meet in a lifetime. Some studies say 10,000, which is kind of wild, but other studies say 80,000. You meet 80,000 people in your lifetime. I don't know if that sounds high or not, but just
depend on where you live. Like if you live in Nebraska, you're not going to meet 80,000 people in your life.
There's not 80,000.
If you live in India, you're going to meet 80,000 people in a week just by walking around.
And I don't recall what they used for their criteria of like what count as a meeting. Maybe knowing their name, having a conversation or something. You might see 80,000 plus whatever people in your lifetime, but how many do you interact with? I think it was interactions, right? But let's just go the high number, right? So if the average person meets 80,000 people, right? In 100 years, let's say the average lifespan will be 100 years because we're in 2023 and technology is going to get crazy, right? If you meet 20,000 plus people, if you're a 5 to 7 summer book man or book girl, you've seen what most people see in a lifetime in 7% of the time, or 5%.
Yeah. Yeah, it's accelerated wild, for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is wild. And so, there's just a trend, man. There's just a need for figuring out where you want to go with life and reaching your true potential. And there's just this need of like mediocrity, of where we all, did we freeze for a second? Okay.
Oh, you're good.
Okay, sweet. But there's just, there's this mindset of we can't, or minimization, where we just don't allow ourselves to really follow the dreams that we all seem to have. Like we all want to do, like we were talking the other day, and you wanted to be on Sky News, right?
What's that?
Right? Was it Sky News? What was the Australian? Was it Australian?
Sky Sports would be cool to work for. Well, just to work for Formula One would be sweet.
Yeah, Formula One, right? And it's like, you met a person, I think, which you could tell that story in a little bit, because I thought that was really cool. And taking the action and even thinking that it's possible to go work there if that's your dream. I think people really struggle with the fact that it's like, could that even be a reality? And that's the idea of the problem with potential. So I'd met all these families, people who are successful, unsuccessful, everything in between, the double wide, the single wide trailers who invest in education, want a better life for their kids, and everybody who's rude to you in the big brick neighborhood, and all the different college students, young, older, and even people in the business world. I work with, multi-million dollar businesses and clients now when I'm coaching people. And we all seem to struggle with this sort of ability to believe that we can actually do great things. And there's this idea that we're too small. We're one of 8 billion. And so we can't have a major impact. And so I think that just broke my heart, because I used to think those things too. And there's still days where I feel like, man, what am I doing? Am I really making a difference, or this is a waste of time or whatever. And so, you can relate, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's the problem with potential. It's like, we want to do these things, but then we have these things that are holding us back, and it's really in our heads, right? The Southwestern quote, life's 10% what happens, 90% how you react to it, I think is really applicable, that our mindsets, and ourselves are our greatest enemies or our greatest friends, right? We are usually on the average, our worst critiques. And, doing research for the book and going through why that is, there's so many different studies in that show that our brains are hardwired to remember negative memories more than positive ones, because of the way that we evolved into these creatures who want to avoid pain. And the thing is, when we want to avoid pain, it creates more pain. There's literally
more pain creates more discomfort, at least, which
right, yes.
which is a problem.
Which is a problem. Right?
There's a kind of some on the similar vein, but there was a person I knew that I worked with after Southwestern, and him and I came to the conclusion that when someone says you have a lot of potential, that's like the biggest insult
yes
you give someone.
That is in chapter 1.
It's like, oh, you have a lot of potential.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. It's like, yeah. So I literally go through that in chapter 1, actually, because that was sort of part of the play on words, right? So we have problems with the potential to grow, to hold us back in life. And then also, if we have potential, why aren't we realizing it? It's kind of the same thing. But yeah, if you're, it's a compliment when you're young, but when you getting into the 25, 30, it's like you could have been great, man.
I mean, what happens when you have potential in several areas? What do you do then? What do you think?
So one of my favorite sentences I wrote in the entire book was, you can do anything, but you can't do everything. And you kind of have to just pick. You got to pick what you care about the most. And the way that I describe how you should pick is by discovering your purpose and aligning the one that actually matters to you most on an emotional and spiritual level, versus just what we could be good at.
You think there's one that supersedes another, or all the others?
I think so. I think if you have a very clear purpose of what you're trying to accomplish in life, then I think it's pretty clear. Although there are 100 ways to skin a different cat, right? So it's like how you go about reaching the same, end result with the purpose. There's many ways, and I just think you ought to pick one and go for it. You can do a lot in 5 years. It's hard to do a lot in 6 months. So whichever way you go, there's probably no wrong answer.
That's probably true, but I think that the reason people freeze, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but like, I think that the reason people freeze is because of the opportunity cost, right? Because like, I mean, there's people who, the problem isn't that they're not trying to realize their potential. It's more like, for example, if you were to tell me, hey, on the one hand, you have the ability to become, like, guaranteed, you came up with two options to say, hey, on the one hand, this path leads to successful comedy career, stand up, you get to be on Joe Rogan talking about comedy, you get to have HBO asking for you to do all the specials, movies because people think you're funny, writing opportunities and shows, you get to do tours, Kevin Hart status or something like that.
Sure.
On the other hand, you're broadcasting for Formula One and you're commentating, you're lead commentator for the lead Formula One. I don't know what I'd pick. Honestly, those two sound like dream jobs, and both of those sound like things I could do and that I would be like really like. So I don't know. I think I'd calculate the opportunity costs on them, but who's to say? I don't know. It's hard. It's hard because if you have a lot of potential, if you have like that much potential, I feel like you have the ability to be successful in so many things. And so, just seeking wisdom on how to be able to choose that more specifically. Like, because what would you tell me to do at that point? I'm curious to see like your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a really great question. Frankly, I think that it's got, so in the book, I make an argument, and this, is I hope most people will agree, but I'm sure some won't. But the argument is that if we want to reach our highest calling, our truest potential, it really needs to be in the pursuit of helping others. So like between those two things, right? You're broadcasting, you're talking to people, and it's fun, right? It's enjoyable. And my whole thing would be like, man, I'm not sure exactly which one's going to be the absolute best. I mean, as I get more into the business world, and I work with these multi-million-dollar businesses and clients, as it turns out, you can own some things and kind of have a lot of time freedom pretty quickly when you're smart about how you're investing in different stuff. So it's about, okay, which one am I going to leverage to help the most people? Yeah, for me, that like it comes down to that's just a simple thing. Like I don't know enough about the comedy, tours that you might do in the Joe Rogan and stuff. And I don't know much about the broadcasting Formula One, and I'm not a big car guy, to be honest with you. But I will say I respect it. And, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's about the intent, because some people are comedians, right? And then if you go into being a comedian and you're just a selfish person, and you're just doing it to be whatever, and you don't ever help anybody, I think you'll be unfulfilled. And I think if you do it the same the other way, you'll still be unfulfilled. But in either scenario, if you help, and your whole thing is how do I add value to human beings and make the world a better place, I think you're probably going to be in a good spot. And it will make you start thinking outside the box of, okay, how do I leverage this position? How do I leverage what I'm doing to, make a difference?
That's a great answer. It's just you've reached a level where now the choices come down to either way is good for me, but what's best for everyone else. That's good.
Yes. And that's the whole, yes, that's how you reach your true potential. Because I'm a big believer that in the moments of greatest struggle, the moments where we have to push through these mental barriers, right? There's always this little thing called the me monster. And the me monster does not want to feel pain, right? And why would he? It's comfort, right? And so I think the ultimate goal in life is not comfort. I think that leads to complacency. Okay. And so the idea, though, is that if we push through the comfort, what's going to make us want to do that? And the only thing I can come up with that would make me want to do hard stuff that I don't want to do personally and be self-sacrificial is basically love and loving other people. Because if you're, let's say you're the comedian who can do whatever, right?
Sure.
And you can get these 10 million, 20 million followers, but there's a point where it's like, man, I don't want to do the extra work. But if you did the extra work, it would help more people. If you care about those people, you'll do the extra work. If that's your motivation. If your motivation is yourself, then you become, whatever. You just become sort of the person with 10 million followers, I guess. He's just kind of living
cool
life. I don't know. You see all this stuff on social media where people seem very sad, and depressed, and they have money and they have fame, they have all these different things, and they're just unhappy. I believe there's a study in the book that goes through, like, as your wealth increases, there's a cutoff. If you're making over $150,000 a year, there's no actual change in happiness, even if you go to $1 million a year. There is a change in happiness if you can't eat, obviously, some of, scaling up to 150, but yeah, just from studies and stuff. So it's like, the whole point is money's not going to get you where you want to be, which ultimately we all want to be happy, right? We all want to have a good life. So make an impact, at least usually. Right.
Yeah. I think it's like people are so focused on just making it on their own that once they get there, they don't know, they've been so worried about putting their mask on first before they help others.
Yeah.
That once they have their mask on, they're like, oh shoot, now what? And so they kind of lose track of, because you've been reaching this goal. It's kind of like when people sell 10,000 units and it's like, you finally did it, but there's like, sometimes people, you'll see that there's like, they'll drop off or they can't do it again. And it's because they were chasing this one goal so long that they finally hit it. And then they didn't know how to handle doing it again, or like how to maintain, or how to like what to do after that. Cause they never pictured what would happen after they hit that goal.
Yeah.
And so they just kind of like lose it. Really interesting.
Yeah. It's an interesting phenomenon that we do, right? We think there's an end, but there's really not, except for death, I guess. But so,
I mean, yeah.
I believe in heaven, but just saying that.
Yeah, I understand.
If you're talking
in this
life,
particular life, yeah.
It's like,
well, and
I've done the same thing,
Now here's a question for you to stir the pot. And I don't know what I personally believe in this, to be honest with you. So I don't know. Okay. But earlier you mentioned about like, being able to save, and so that the way like life could be great later on. But then it's like, but what do you do when it's like, because here's my philosophy on this, and it's changing as I get older, which is really interesting. I used to be the same way, where I'm like, okay, we're going to save, invest, work hard right now. So when I'm 40, I can retire, or 50, I can retire, or whatever. But then I'm like, but when you're 50 to 70, or when I see people retire who are in their 70s, it's like, but you're old now. So like everything, even if you're healthy, is still not as good. Like, do you know what I'm saying? So it's like, or do you want to just enjoy it now and just work till you're 70? So that way, when you're working, is just, you know what I'm saying? Because you at least lived it now. So, like, case in point, my wife and I and Jacob Levine, we were in Europe doing a tour for the podcast.
I like Jacob Levine, man. He's a nice
Jacob's great, and we were doing tours, meeting different alumni and stuff, and yeah, man, we were living. But here's the deal, like, would I like to do that same European tour with my investments, paying out and my retirement fund full and like having unlimited cash? And in my head, I'm like, that's kind of cool to be able to be like, oh, now we're staying at the nice place in Europe, and now we're traveling first class. And I thought about that a lot. I'm like, oh man, like to come back here later in my life and with like just more cash and just to be able to experience some of the other things. On the other hand, I'm like, yeah, but then like it's already kind of hard getting on a plane, getting out of a plane, being on a train for 6 hours or whatever, being on a plane for 6 hours to get to Europe. You get out, you're like a little sore because you're in your 30s and your body's just not as even though it's and on my head, I'm like, if it's already kind of tough right now from a standpoint of like trying to get sleep and stuff, imagine trying to be 70 and do this. This would be
Yeah.
terrible. Like that would suck to
Yeah.
like
Be hard.
be like, oh, we gotta walk like in Europe. It just looked like we walked. There was one day we walked 25,000 steps, and it wasn't flat steps. We were in Prague. We were going up hills and stuff. And in my head, I'm like, imagine being. I mean, I would see people who are in like their 60s and 70s trying to get up that hill, and I'm like, I wonder if they're having as good of a time as they thought this was going to be for saving.
Yeah.
Do you see the point I'm trying to make? So it's like, how is there a way that you would recommend enjoying life still now while still like saving to make it like enjoyable later, but like because I feel like that's something that both people have a hard time releasing. Is the point
Yeah,
I'm
I
trying to
agree.
make is work hard, no
Yeah,
rest.
yeah.
So
No, yeah.
how have you handled that since you left? I guess is what I'm asking.
Man, so I'm actually a believer in you should work between vacations or work between events. Now, I
Love
had a
that.
startup this year. So, these last 10 months, I didn't take really many vacations. I had a lot of weekend trips, but when you're in a startup, you've got to commit the first year or two to make things happen. There's so much that goes into building the systems, and I probably have like 100 trainings on this big scrolling coaching guide, that I'm trying to get online. But that's a
Yeah.
one and done kind of thing. And there's some updates, it's maintenance. But so I wouldn't recommend maybe now doing what I'm doing, but I think you should. Yeah. What my goal is to have a place where I'm just working between vacations, where it's like, okay, I want to go do this, 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 and this. So we're going to put these in the calendar. Then I'm going to, scale back or scale forward my work based on when the next vacation is going to be. I'm a big believer in either commission or you own your own thing, because you can just make stuff happen, like if you want to.
It's a lot easier.
It's so much
I
easier,
agree.
man. My wife had surgery yesterday, and I was able to just reschedule some meetings and move some stuff around and be there. I had one meeting I couldn't switch, and that was sort of annoying, but it's like, yeah, man. And it's like, it's not crushing your results. And I just think that's a wise way to do it. So my short thing is like, have the fun stuff that you do, just be smarter about how you utilize your time. So if you're on the straight commission or whatever, which is where I've literally never had a salary job. So I don't know how to do this. If you're, somebody who's just like on a $60,000 a year kind of job, I guess you just do a big budget, right? That's all I'm doing. So just do a big budget where how much you're investing. But if you're smart about how you invest, like I have a real estate investment strategy that I go for. I'm not a big fan of stocks, at least at this point in life. Maybe my mind will change. I'm only, 26 and learning all the time, right? But for me, you can go invest a certain amount of money and just have a cash flow producing asset instead of, worrying too much about the retirement. You're not going to touch the retirement till you're 65. To me, if you're smart with how you can use it, just build a cash flowing asset, whatever that may be. Or, I've been looking at, like, my brother and I have been looking into like buying businesses that cash flow well. It's like, you can get creative with
Patrick Dickler does that.
money. So I think this idea of I have to be so old to retire is incorrect. And I actually just think that there's a shorter period of time that you need to invest than most people realize. So that's sort of my argument. If you're smart about how you do it, then you get both. And I don't think you need to work. I think you ought to work between vacations regardless. Okay. During that build up time. But once you have so much, it's like, it's really not that crazy. In fact, just don't live lavishly. Like, just don't live lavishly. You know what I'm saying? Like, some people they make the money, they live lavishly. They go blow hard. So just come up with your number of how much income you need per month, work backwards. And you probably only need 3 investment properties, for example, to get $6,000 to $10,000 a month, depending on the sizes and depending on, obviously, many, many factors of how you set it up and all the different things. But it's not that crazy to replace a $60K a year type job if you're smart about it. But I think people have knowledge gaps in that area. It's like,
Aha.
knowledge gap company right here, pop it
There
up,
it
right?
is. Right there. There it
Right
is.
there it
There's
is.
the logo.
Uh,
Pop.
yeah, pop. But so again, I think there's, I'll probably do a book on this one day, but there's just this huge knowledge gap of financial literacy. It's sad, which is sad. And, I've just been gracious. What's the word? I've been lucky enough to meet all these incredible, again, multimillionaire clients who they're doing all these things. And I'm just like taking notes, but I'm teaching them the sales of the YouTube stuff, which they're not good at. And it's like, it's amazing. It's so cool.
Yeah. So on your book, we'll get to that in a second, actually, to your consulting business, but back to your book. When you took you 21 months, can you break down like what that process is like for you? Like what, the writing, the editing, all that, what did you learn through all that, and how did it flow?
Yeah, man, I learned that if you're not in the pursuit of helping others, you definitely won't finish a book. That's for sure.
Yeah,
it's hard.
Tough.
Really hard, man. Whenever I came up with an idea, I didn't have a title. I didn't have a problem I was going to fix. I didn't know the audience. I didn't know anything. I just was like, you know what? I'm just going to start writing. That's probably one of my greatest strengths that I've ever been good at, is just taking action, just going for it, and making things work. But yeah, man, I just basically wrote $40,000 words on a scrolling doc with some random like titles of what I thought a chapter might be. So I probably had 15 chapters I wrote, and I took out half of them once I figured out what the title would be. So I was up in Michigan, like snowed in, on a recruiting trip. And I was just like at this hotel by myself, sitting in the lobby, just starting to write a bunch of stuff. Like, I think that was the first time I started writing. And I was just trying to get out everything I was saying, like on a weekly basis, to these college students, just like, hey, like, who decides if you like something? That's a quote at the top of one of my chapters called The Fallacy of Proficiency. So the fallacy of proficiency came a year and a half later. But this concept of like who decides what we like, was something I would talk to rookies about, because the way we assign value to things is if we think we're going to be good at them, or if there's a purpose or a transformation we're going to get from the activity. And a lot of times I think we limit ourselves to even start things, for example, by, oh, I'm not good at that. And we think we have to be good already. But the reality is, like, to be good at something, it takes forever to be good at something. And there's certain things you kind of just got to get through to get good at them, right? That's the fallacy of proficiency. So like, I was just trying to write down everything. What am I saying to these young people? What, self-talk. And there's a whole chapter on the Pygmalion effect and the self-fulfilling prophecy and the Gollum effect. I don't know if you've heard of those before.
Yeah, a few of those anyway. A few of those.
Gollum effect is how when you say negative things to yourself, they often lead to negative outcomes, similar to a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like if you're dating someone and you assume they're going to cheat on you and you treat them like they're going to cheat on you, they eventually cheat on you. That's the idea, right? You just don't treat them well, right? So, I was just writing that down. I was puking on pages, just trying to get it all out. And then I actually put it away as I went out and field trained for about 6 to 8 weeks. And then I got back in the summer as a DSL because it was the first year that I was off the field for half the summer. And then I just started going to coffee shops in the morning, just kind of reading through it. And I don't even remember where the title came up, but after like 8 weeks of just sitting on the shelf, I think the problem with potential popped up, or maybe it came up in one of my recruiting trips before the summer. I can't even recall, but I was laying in bed, not being able to sleep. And all of these names were just popping in my head. How like you have your phone next to you, and I don't know if you ever done this, you're just writing all this stuff down really quick when it comes to you. It didn't make any sense because I'm such a not a night owl. Like I'm somebody who's like at like 8 o'clock, I'm like, yo, can we go to bed? Like, but for some reason it was just coming to me. So I just wrote down the problem with potential. And then I just wrote this story of like, man, we have these problems. They've got the potential to grow, and, reaching potential is painful, so it's a play on words. There you go. Oh, there it is, So I wrote that down, and then that was the whole thing. So then I wrote a preface and an introduction finally with all these chapters. And I took out like half of the text, like 40 something thousand words went to 20,000. And I just rewrote and built a bunch of stuff. So that was last summer. And then I just worked on trying to get the book as finished as possible with, again, never writing a book is a mess. I remember sending it to Trey Campbell, like, hey, can you read over my book? And then he 6 months later later said he did not read the book. And he's like, I don't even know what it was you sent me. And I was like, dang it.
Damn.
Brutal, man. That's the best feedback anyone ever given me, though. So January of 2023, I decided that I was opening up this coaching business. Before that, I was working with Zane and Seth over at Elevate Wellness and doing that startup and selling, fitness coaching through Instagram and stuff like that, which was really fun. And that was like 3 or 4 months because after I'd left Southwestern October of 2022. And so that January, though, my realtor, this is putting the stories together somehow because they all really do connect. But my realtor said, she'd helped me buy an investment property in my house that I live in with my wife now, and we really love her. And she became my first coaching client because she said, hey, can you teach me how to do a podcast and a YouTube channel? I was like, I've never done that before, and she's like, I'll be your guinea pig client because I like what you do. I said, okay. So I just made up this coaching program. I just helped her do what I did in 6 months in 2 months. And then it ended up rolling into this business growth coaching where I'm helping business owners multiply their time, get out of their business and work on their business more so they can own the system instead of owning a job. And that, whether it was marketing or sales or recruiting or leadership or back-end systems, I just had this interesting experience from work in the startup of this Elevate Wellness and being a district sales leader and then being a great salesman and recruiter and having an accounting degree. It just all kind of put it together for the perfect pedigree of like the business owner mindset somehow, which was awesome. I'm glad that all worked out. That was never the plan. I never planned on starting this coaching business at all, so weird. So anyway, you froze there for a sec, so I paused.
Oh, yeah, I see that my internet's being a little weird, but I can hear you just fine. So just can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
I don't know why it's being like this. This is really weird.
No, you're good. So, but she was like, man, let's do that. So I did that. And then it just led into her helping me meet like these owners of real estate firms. And so then I went and started doing workshops on branding and social media, and people were just like, hey, let's meet. And then they were all signing up for coaching. And after just a few months, I had like 19 business owners I was working with. And I was like, what the heck? So at the time, though, in January, February, as I was writing this out, I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I love this. I'm inspiring people to do what inspires them. I'm building confidence. I'm bridging knowledge gaps, which is what I was doing on my YouTube channel. And it's what I was doing. It's my favorite part of being a DSL and really selling in general was helping educate people to believe in themselves more with the educational stuff. And so I was like, oh, this is awesome. So I'm doing this. And then I read this book called The One Thing by Gary Keller, which I highly recommend. In fact, that's actually where I got the idea of working between vacations from that book. But the idea is that what's the one thing in your business? What's the one thing that if you accomplished, if you created this one thing that would make everything else unnecessary or irrelevant? And for me in the coaching business and the consulting business, it was write a book. It was finish your book. Because when you have a book, it's your ticket for workshops, which is how I find my clients and keynotes and speeches. And that's how I grow my audience on YouTube. And then it helps more people, right? It helps more people. It's adding value. It's living out that purpose, that inspiring others, right? So I feel really, really good about the result of it and seeing people's lives change. And then it's also a lead magnet in general, just having a book. If people read your book, they already know you, like you, they'll subscribe to different things. And if they talk to you, they're probably open-minded to conversations about different things. And it's, the agenda is not always to sell every single person who buys my book or something, but the whole point being that opens doors to everything I need in the business. If you really think about it, because there's so much content out there about what you think and your thoughts that there's, if you just have author next to your name, like people are going to let you in the door,
Yeah, I understand.
So then it was like, okay, I need to get this done because I've been working on it for 9 months and we were still in like nowhere to really finish. Right. So it was like, okay, so I got inspired by my wife to help people. And then I sucked at writing it. And then I read another book and then it all fit together with the coaching business. So I said, okay, then that's what we'll do. So I just started every single morning, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. I kid you not, for 6 months straight, hour a day on the book, Monday through Friday, no matter what.
That's cool.
And when I did it that way, I started having some beta readers like my dad and my wife or whatever. Oftentimes they would be like, hey, that tone was kind of harsh on this chapter. And when I would go back, I used to write at any time during the day. And if I wrote at like 4 p.m., my tone was angry and direct and brutal. But if I wrote at 8 a.m., it was always encouraging and thought-provoking and inspiring. which is really what I was going for. But that was the most interesting phenomenon of it, is just like writing at the same time, and then really understanding the law of diminishing returns, which is this idea: if you work too long, right, then you need to rest because you're working at a lower productivity rate. So if I did things at the end of the day like that, the book was it was like a waste of time. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that makes
6
sense.
months in. Yep. So I finished that 6 months. I edited the entire text. I think it's 68,000 words, something like that. I did that twice. And then I finally paid for a professional editor to give me a content review. And they gave me a good content review, let me just tell you.
Yeah. They'll eviscerate it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. I needed it so bad because it's first book. You just never know. And so gave me a lot of feedback. I added so much stuff from there. And then I sent it in to an editor for what we call a copy edit, which is more like line by line proofreading, making sure everything agrees. Because that first editor pointed out that I disagreed with myself within the book, which is hilarious. Yep. You kind of, when you're writing a book, this, just as long as it'll be a couple hundred pages, but you just kind of forget what you write sometimes. And so then you'll, in a mood one day, write the opposite, which is really interesting. So anyway, that last editor finally got back to me, and then I read through it. I had some people read it, and oh man, so unfortunate, but this has been the most frustrating part about writing it. They sent it back with about 5,000 errors still. Whoa. And then it took me 3 weeks for them to agree to redo it. So it put me back really far. So the fact that the book's coming out in December is literally because I had to be really persistent with them about getting it back 2 or 3 weeks earlier. So the book could come out. Yeah, it was a wild ride because I was scheduled to get done with editing way back in like September, and it didn't get done till like November, which is insanity. So and now we're here, with the whole thing, and that's been wild. And in the last 2 months stretch, I wrote a free workbook to go along with it because I just realized that most of the books that we have that I read, it's I think people struggle with actually application because it's like, oh, that's a great idea. And there's this sort of push to read like, 24 books in a year, or a book a month. But I would rather push for people to read this really slowly and like utilize the workbook with it to actually, make changes and reach their potential. Because it's not like reading 32 books in a year doesn't make you successful,
Yeah, I agree.
What you read. So
yeah, because there's a lot of books out there on success. There's a lot of readers out there about success, but there's few applicants of both. Like not many people are really. Again, kind of what we were talking about 10,000 units earlier. Like your goal is to reach this many books, but you read them all, and then it's like, yeah, but now what? Then what do you got to show for it that you've changed, or that you've grown, or that it's allowed you to transfer skill or nothing? Like it's just, oh, you just read the book. That was it. Like,
great job.
Do it. I mean, yeah, I learned something probably, but applying what you learn is really what intelligence is, right? So it's interesting that people just consume things like that. So it's good that you wrote like a manual to just kind of like let them chew on it instead of just consume it and swallow it in one swoop.
Exactly. I don't want I just want anyone who gets the book, like who invests whatever it is, cost wise, paperback or hard, whatever, right? Ebook, that they just, I just hope they get something. I just hope they just get something. If it's one thing, maybe they, there's always parts of books that we like and some parts that are like, meh, it's always different for everybody. But I just hope there's like one thing in there that it'll actually make a difference. And I hope that workbook really helps them like work through it too. It's just, I want it to be the book that's not just this next thing you read. I want it to be that book that like, oh, like the one thing for me, it's like, oh, you applied that thing and it's life-changing.
Yeah. Are you reading anything right now that like was like that for you besides the one thing like that you're now working on?
So I'm not reading anything right now that would be more of the self-help industry. I'm really more into like marriage books and different things like that, cool. Because that's sort of the season I'm in. But I don't know. There's a lot of books. Love and Respect's a really, really, really good book for married couples, though. That is it's a wildly good read. So I'm enjoying that. So if you want something like that, there's that. But one of the other most impactful books I've read in the last 24 months was really short book called The Dip by Seth Godin, however you say his last name. But it's When You Should Quit and When You Should Stick. And since we're on this Southwestern podcast, I think you might agree with this. A lot of Southwestern people struggle with this idea that if you quit, you're like a bad person or something. But there's a good logical time of when you should quit or when you should stick, and it really has to. I think we might have talked about this last time, but it's all has to do with where the end result's going to actually end up. Like if you get stuck in a thing called a cul-de-sac, it's like you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. Even if you're in a good situation, it's like that's when you should switch, even if it looks crazy to other people.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it's tough because it's hard to leave friends. But yeah, I understand. It's that's a good wisdom to learn early if you can about when to move on to the next thing or when.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you read Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you pronounce his last name? Robert
Kiyosaki.
Kiyosaki. So Robert Kiyosaki, he's got a good story about what he did, but I think he did military, he did Xerox or something, and a couple other jobs. And his whole philosophy is become the best for a couple of years in a row, or like one of the top whatever percent. And then he would literally switch to something else based on the skill set he needed to then go run and do what he really wanted.
But then the question is, what if that is your potential? What if you're doing the thing that is for your potential? Should you quit that? Back to the beginning of this.
It's not a cold, I don't think you're in a cul-de-sac. If your pursuit is how can I help the most people as humanly possible, right? Then if you're in a cul-de-sac and you're limited on the number of people that you're helping, then you got to switch. Just to be real, that was one of my thoughts with being a DSL. I just felt like I had to spend so much time on just 35 people. I was stuck. I couldn't do more than 35 people. How am I going to impact more than 30? I've got to make sure all these people are here. My livelihood's gone, So I just felt limited, right? And another reason to write a book or do a YouTube channel or podcast, right? It's you're helping people even if you don't meet them, right?
Yeah.
And that got me excited,
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, it's interesting that just from a publishing a book standpoint, that the obstacles that you bump into. I'd highly recommend you check out selfpublishing.com because they help you their marketing strategies especially for the kind of book that you wrote are brilliant. Highly recommend.
Do it for you?
Yes and no. There's a little bit more hands-on stuff that you have to do, but it's worth knowing him just for the sake of understanding what your book can do, so you can unleash the potential of your book and not have a problem with. See what I did there?
Yeah,
highly recommend. Chandler Bolt is one of the more impressive people I've met since leaving Southwestern, and his company does a great job of helping people just market. I mean, not just write and publish, but then after publishing it, just what to do, because there's legs right to it. One thing I never was interested in is marketing my book. I didn't write my book to. This is gonna sound shitty. Sorry, but I never wrote my book to help people. That was not what I wrote my book for. It was the intent. The purpose of it was never about inspiring, or people have told me that it's inspired them and or stuff, and that's awesome. But that is not why I did it. And so because of that, I've never really been like, I don't promote my book very much. I mean, I talk about it when it comes up on the podcast or when I have an author on here, because it just naturally be like, me too. I can relate because I went through the same thing you did. But
so why did you write your book?
I wrote my book because I would meet people who were friends of mine who had immigrant parents or immigrant grandparents, and you would ask them like, "Hey, how did you guys end up here in Nebraska or wherever I was, Texas?" And they'd go, "I don't know." And I'm like, "What? You don't know? What do you mean you don't know? Like, how did your grandpa end up in where they're at?" "I don't know." "How did my wife's grandparents?" So, yeah, her dad's dad. They immigrated from Norway, and I asked her dad about that, and because she didn't know how they met, she didn't know how they ended up in Portland from Norway. Like, she had no idea. She still doesn't, actually. And I asked, and her dad told me the story. But that's why I wrote my book, because my parents came here. I came here. And if you ask my grandkids why and how and what happened, and they say, "I don't know," I will roll over in my grave because I wrote about it.
That's
and
right.
They should know. You know what I mean? And that's why. That's literally why. Because I saw what my parents went through, and I couldn't imagine not everybody needs to know my story. That's why I'm like hard time. Sometimes it's hard to like promote my book. And I just, like I said, I was talking to Aaron Bowe. He goes, "You need to promote this. This is really, really good. Like you can make a movie out of this. This is awesome." And I was like, "Great, that would be awesome." And all that stuff is awesome, but don't care. I mean, if it happens, I'm not gonna be like, no, Netflix, don't give me money to make a show out of my book or whatever.
Sure.
For whatever reason that happens,
Yeah.
great, amazing. And maybe someday I can and make a move on that and make it more marketable. Never was the goal though, because what I cared about is my legacy of my generational family to be like, this is the day. You know why you don't remember your great great, or I mean, I guess let me ask you this. Do you know your great 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 grandpa?
Man, that's a great question. You know what, though? My mom has done the ancestry.com thing, so she knows, and I know that we actually have this information. She's gone through it with me, but
But
it's been
but you
forever.
know why you don't know? You know, because they didn't leave you any money. It's,
Okay.
you know what I'm saying? They didn't intend to give their generations down the line, hey, this is how we ended up here. Because somewhere up the line, well, you're American, like right, you were born here. Somewhere
Yeah.
up the line in your family, you were not from here. And you don't know that story. I mean, maybe your mom does, but you don't know that
Yeah.
story.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it could be easily avoided if someone knew that story and then told it instead of like, well, I think my grandpa was from Germany or wherever your family's from. But
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, you know what I'm saying? And so for me, that was my biggest why was like, I want to honor my parents for the sacrifice that they made because they left everything. My parents were in a position that you were in, kind of where everything's going good. You got some kids or young. And imagine having to move and lose all that, get your lives threatened, you're going to get murdered, right? And then your grandkids don't know that you made that sacrifice. How insane would that be? And I
Oh, yeah.
couldn't bear that thought. So that was
No,
my
yeah.
why. To be honest with you, that was
No,
my
that's
why.
good.
Now, as I wrote it, things changed and the perspective with which I wrote it and stuff did change because of the coaching I got. But from the standpoint of the original reason that I started typing out the story was because I could not imagine someone saying, "Oh, I don't know why
Yeah.
Rodrigo Gamboa, like, or who that even is. Like, how could you not know? I want people to remember their great 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 grandpa as my dad because he was the person that first came here to give us all the opportunity to live here in the first place. That I think is worth remembering because that's
Yeah.
the equivalent of leaving them a lot of money, in my opinion. I've never been asked that, but thank you for asking.
Yeah. No, you're welcome. Yeah, man. That's so interesting. Like, that makes me want to read the book. So, where can they get your book, Andres?
Oh, great question. On Amazon, just look up The Cost of Citizenship and you will find it. Or you can look up my name, I think. I don't know. Actually, I
Yeah.
don't even know. I don't know. This is how not good at marketing this book I am. I don't know. I think you just go to Amazon and you type in my name or The Cost of Citizenship book or something and it should come up.
So I think that your book sounds amazing, and I think one of the things that like you've got to realize. So you just did. I think you just did what I articulate in the book a lot about how we minimize ourselves, and
Oh, yeah.
I think you just did that right now. Right now,
Well,
this is a good learning moment here.
it's not about necessarily minimizing myself. It's just more about like there's no desire to have that be a part of my life that I need to like I've already put it out there for people to see.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's out there. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
I don't need to put more effort. I'd rather put more effort into maximizing this podcast's
Sure, sure.
visibility. You know what I mean? Like
No,
so
I
my
understand.
time is but anyway, go ahead. Sorry, I
And I think
interrupted you.
that's like a selfless thing, right? That's sort of like, oh, I don't want to, I'm not here to just send everyone my way or whatever, which I totally respect. But like, wouldn't people's lives be a little bit better if they kind of did know where they came from? If there was some more family, like if people cherish their family more, right? Like, isn't that like a positive? That's a positive thing, right?
Yeah.
And so there's you've heard of the butterfly effect, the ripple
Mhm.
effect,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So and if you don't know what that is, it's just you do something small, you don't even realize it, but it makes a little change, and that change carries through, all the little interactions maybe someone has, and it keeps going, right? And so, like if somebody reads your book though, like I don't want you to minimize your impact. You might have someone read your book that you never talked to. They're like, wow, that's worth it. And then they make the same choice your grandparents made and change the lives of their entire family or something, right? It's like you
Yeah.
never know. And so it's like, I don't think that you ought to say, I understand the motivation of why you wrote it, And I still think that it can have a bigger impact than you would expect. And I don't think it's a bad thing to promote it if the context is like, well, if it inspires somebody, like.
Yeah. And I'm sure it will. I think what I'm saying more is I don't want what I do to define me for
Sure.
who I am. I think I'd rather make the initial butterfly effect with who I am than what I have done. Because for every cool thing I've done, I wrote a book, which again, I'm not trying to minimize the impact. I know how hard that was because I did it. So like, I was there when it happened,
How many months?
it took me, I think, from blank page to when we hit publish. My dad was the one that clicked publish on it, which one made me cry. That was a crazy day.
Oh,
It
wow.
took me I think it was 64 days or something.
64 days. Wow, way
Mhm.
faster than mine.
It was 50,000 words, 45,000 words by the time I was done, like full manuscript. And then, but I had a specific deadline. So I just really honed because I published it on the 21-year anniversary of my dad moving to the USA. And I was like, I want it to be special. Like, I don't want it to be,
Yeah.
I need it to be on that day. And because of that, I knew how long the editing was going to take. So the only part I could control is how quickly the words got out. And so
Right.
I just really honed in on that. And so, but anyway, the long story is, as I was doing it, the thing that motivated me was that day, the deadline. Because if I missed it, I was going to be like, oh, it's not going to come out until next year then, because I
Yeah.
want that day.
Yeah.
Um, but to your point of like, if more people read it, yes, I hope so. And I wrote it. The heart that I put into it was hoping that the person reading it would be inspired or would find change. And to your point, when I was early on when I was writing, I had to make a quick choice of, am I writing to immigrants or am I writing to people who are not immigrants? Because that's a very big distinction. Because
Yes.
if an immigrant reads my book, they're like, yeah, dude, we all went through this. 40 million immigrants in the USA, we all went through this, and
Yeah.
immigrants across the world, right? But the other 310 million people that live here, like, they didn't go through that. You didn't go through that, I don't think, that I know of. And so like someone like you would be more impacted because it's new to you. So I did have that mentality of, I hope this does, because otherwise it's not worth doing it if it's not going to make an impact to whoever's reading the words, right? It's not for
Yeah.
me. So there is an aspect to that. But what I'm saying is like the idea of like, since it wasn't my intention to try to make a big impact on a massive amount of crowds, but just on the one person that was reading it, even if it was only ever one, then I never really had motivation to, after it was published, to be like, let's go do speaking gigs, which I know is what you're supposed to do.
Sure.
And it's important for people to do that who do want to make that large impact and a splash like that instead of a
Sure.
butterfly effect. But it's more like, once it was done, it just felt like, it felt more like running a marathon, where it's like, I didn't run a marathon for anybody, although it might inspire other people. But once I was done, I was like, okay,
Yeah. Sure.
that was done, and I'm happy with what. And if I never write again, that's okay. Although I do want to, because I kind of fell in love with writing. It's a whole
Sure.
different conversation, and I'm sure you can
Yeah.
relate. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but yeah, I just never, I don't know. That's I never felt like, I never felt like, yeah, and it's the same thing. Tell me if you feel like this, but and it sounds like you don't. But so maybe I could use some perspective from you, of like, even with this podcast, when people like are like, oh, tell me about your podcast, I'm like, I don't feel like you owe me the 2 hours of time to listen to this. So anybody that listens, it's amazing, and I'm so thankful for them that they do download this and they do listen to this, because I never thought that this would be something that people could get value from. And now that it has, and it's provided value to people have reached out to us saying, hey, this is a really cool thing that you're doing. Now that's responsibility on me that I chose to accept to keep going. And that's awesome. So that it is different. But how do you feel like, what's your perspective on like, um, on balancing that, where it's like, I want to not feel like I'm demanding people's attention, but at the same time I do feel like what I have to say is important and people should listen, and that's like a tight rope. So how do you walk that?
Uh,
Because I don't know.
Man, that's a good question. I think my whole strategy has just been, hey, I know I can solve some problems, and talking to the people who have audiences who basically have similar problems that they want. Like, it's just networking, really. I mean, like, I don't think that I'm all that crazy, wildly special, but whenever I go do a talk, people come up, they're like, that's the best talk I've heard. I'm like, I guess I should keep doing them. It's
Yeah.
less about like, I'm usually going in there with, man, I hope this is really good. I hope this goes
Yeah.
well. But I'm just following my heart, man, just trying to help people. So often when I go collaborate and someone invites me to come speak, I'm outreaching because I want to get out there and help. And, I've got to make a living and make money and stuff, right, to live, obviously. So, I'm usually asking what the people need, and then I bring in solutions that I just have, and then it helps people. So, I think if you have, so what motivates me, I think is a little biblical story here. So there's this parable of the talents in the Bible. Have you ever heard of it before?
Let's just pretend I haven't, because
You
I don't
haven't?
want to
Okay.
say yes. I think I know where you're going with this, but
Okay.
I want to hear your thoughts.
Sure. So I'm gonna use it in a kind of more of a allegorical way. I guess that's the wrong word, but I can't think of it right now. So basically, Jesus is teaching his disciples and teaching this crowd, I believe, this parable of the talents. And the idea is that there's this master who gives each of three servants a certain amount of money being talents. But I want to use talents as more of like like forget money for a second, just like what you're capable of doing, right?
Yeah.
So he gives one person 10 talents, right? Another person 5, another person 1. And so the master leaves. He comes back however long later, and the person with 10 talents has multiplied his talents. 10, so now he has 20 talents. And the master basically tells him, hey, you've done really good work. I'm going to give you 10 cities, to go manage, because what you do with little is means that you can do a lot, right? The 5 person does the same thing. He doubles his talents. He gets 5 cities. The 1 person says, I know you're a hard man. I didn't want to lose this. I didn't want to mess up. So I hid my money, I hid my talents in the dirt for no one to see, but I will give you your 1 talent back. And the master said, wow, you evil servant, you should have at least put it on loan. You should have done something with it.
Yeah, I do remember this story.
And so the idea is that we all have talent. We all have potential within us. That's at the beginning of the book. It's in the preface. We all have potential. That's a big belief of mine. And to hide it, that convicts me to never want to hide what I've been given. I just want to share it. I just want to share whatever I've been given. Even college is like, what major, what class, and adults, it's like, well, whatever, I'm just doing this job or whatever. And, it's like, I think a lot of people think that they can't make an impact. So that nihilism causes them to do what that 1 talent person does.
I understand that.
I know.
Heard that.
I don't feel bad about going out there and being like, well, I've got a message, because I think you're allowed to have confidence in what you're good at. There's many things I'm not good at and that I would never want to speak on. Many things I'm unqualified for.
Same. There's a lot of I owe talents for.
Yes. But there's a couple things I am really good at. Action and purpose and understanding the things, sales and business, whatever. But so I think it's just finding what you're good at, your strengths, and leaving out the rest and just going after whatever it is. You might be behind the scenes person. No problem with that.
Yeah.
I need behind the scenes people to help me share my talent, and I'll never have their talent, right? Like it would take me so much longer, right? Yeah. Like what you're saying, to be good at what you're good at. Right. So I'm just going to be working with the talents that I have, because some weaknesses, according to Strength Finders 2.0, by Clifton.
Yeah.
Right. That you're just not going to be able to overcome or develop those weaknesses into be anything like your strengths.
That's interesting. I like that. See, that one's an interesting book as well, but that's for another, that might be a story for Bisler. Okay, so let's go into your coaching business now. Like, and this can kind of lead into maybe a couple of Southwestern stories of like, I'll just start it with this way, and we can start going out. Tell me about how you decided to develop the coaching business, and then if there's anything from Southwestern that you learned that's helping you now, besides the obvious, or maybe the obvious. I don't know. Maybe I
don't know. I mean, I can do a checklist, I guess. So, so basically, I did the coaching business because I just enjoyed doing the podcast with her name's Brandy Leiden. She's got a brand that I've helped her build called Mom, You're Not Alone. And her YouTube's Brandy Leiden, or YouTube/@Brandy Leiden. But she went through something that was just wild. And I just liked being sort of there to help. She had lost her husband a couple years ago. And so she had to go through this whole thing of being a single mom after like decades with a couple high schoolers. And it's like, whoa, there's so much she didn't learn. but she knew as a woman, like how to run businesses now and how to like manage all of her stuff and live a life worth living and be motivated. And so she's just a really impressive person. And so helping her get that out to people, I just realized as I was meeting more people, there's a lot of people that's doing exactly what I'm talking about, where they've got this talent, they don't know how to share it though. You know, they've got this idea, they don't know how to share it. They've got this love for people and they don't know how to share it, you know? And so I saw my strengths of helping people bridge these knowledge gaps, which is where the name of the company was. I just saw all these people with so much potential that if they could just figure out how to get it out there, right? Then I just saw that the world would be better. Because any woman who goes and listens to her whole, you know, series of videos, like they're going to understand wealth better. They're going to understand how to, you know, juggle being a single mom. They're going to be understanding how to set goals and all these things. It's just like, man, that just got me so excited. That idea that I could be a conduit, you know, a catalyst for people getting more and more ideas worth sharing out there in the world, you know, and as much of it as possible is free too, you know, because I mean, I charge for coaching, which means I'm basically selling ideas, you know, and selling knowledge in some ways. But man, I really like this idea of getting a lot of stuff out there as cheap as possible for people, you know?
Yeah.
So,
Appreciate that.
so I don't know, man. That got me excited and I just kept going with it. I was like, you know what? I could help all these people with really cool things, get those out. So I just have my whole brand set up in a way that, like, I believe on my purpose page, it says self-help is just one step in growth, but we believe that the purpose of anything that we do should be in the pursuit of helping others. And so we like to say that we're in the helping others industry. So I'm just looking for the right people to coach and help grow businesses that really just care about the experience of their clients, experience of the impact they're having on people's lives versus just like, I'm going to make as much profit as possible, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's why coaching sounds great to me. Helping people do that. Just, it's all right there. I'm loving it.
Yeah. I mean, and it's cool that you're able to align your values with something like that, because some people don't have that ability either. Like they have a cool idea or concept, but then their values kind of could contradict a little bit of what they do. You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yes,
interesting.
I
But
do. I do.
you have a good alignment of that. So that works. That's so cool, man. So what's the North Star? Like if you know, goals and stuff, when you hit your goals, what's that look like?
And I could share about the Southwestern thing. I don't want to forget about that if you want that. But
Oh, sure.
man,
I mean, but again, we don't have to get into that because we did
yeah,
the first time. So, you know, if people want to listen to those stories,
sure.
they can always go to that episode too. So
Yeah,
it's
all
whatever
that
feels right.
Yeah, sure. So man, the North Star, you know, I could see 20, 30 years from now, just having, I don't think I want to be Tony Robbins per se, but the goal
Thank
for me
God.
is motivational speaking and inspiring and sharing. And, you know, by 20 years, I'd like to have a bevy of 5 to 10, 20 books that are just out there, similar to almost a John Maxwell, where we're going deep on some of these topics to help people do big things. And I'm actually working on a big contract with, I don't know if it'll happen. So maybe by the time this comes out, it will have happened or not. But, you know, I'm working towards coaching corporations and larger groups of people, businesses with 100 employees and sales, to help them all have better lives and do better at what they're doing, you know? So I could see myself going in that direction, you know, all sorts of things, but the coaching, the consulting, growing businesses seems to be my thing. So I'm pretty much all in on that. Eventually maybe owning businesses, having, you know, different portfolios that I help people with. That all sounds fun, but more than anything, I really had this vision. I've had this vision for a long time of wanting to come up almost like an alternative to high school or college, or something that could go with it. I don't know. I don't know if I want to be the most controversial person in the world where I just tear down the college system, you know, but that sounds kind of interesting to me, to just come
I
up
would
with
love to see that.
a foundation that's like, hey guys, we're going to teach everything in college is on Google. So we're just going to teach you everything and build a network of employers who maybe hire people who actually just know the stuff versus cheat their way through school. No offense to people who don't cheat in college, but when I went through school, man, there was a lot of people cheating.
Yeah.
So, but man, it would be so cool to build something like that, where it was like, you know, if you're just hungry to go make an impact in the world, and you want to go do stuff, and you want to go learn actual skills that you'll actually utilize in life, have an alternative to college, you know, or, you know, maybe it works with high school, maybe it works with colleges to teach these skills that obviously there's massive gaps in education on. But that's sort of the philanthropic thing that I want to accomplish with the businesses that have a, the businesses are really self-sufficient and making solid revenue to be putting a lot towards that. I think that would be cool. That would be the ultimate dream. So that all works together, right? It all works together. I want it to be under that Knowledge Gap brand where we're, changing lives in that way. But yeah, that would be, stay tuned, I guess, right? That's going to be down. That would be down.
I hope you do it. I hope you do it.
But you know what, man? I bet
have a hard time with Tony Robbins and with colleges.
Yes, man. But I bet you, like, from selling books, right? I mean, you meet all these people and they're like, none of them believe in college. And I went to college and I enjoyed college, and college was fun. And the accounting degree was worth it. It was. And the networking was worth it. And I'm not saying that colleges aren't worth it, but I am saying that, man, they are kind of dragging you along for 3 years and $120K.
I am saying that they're not worth it. I'm saying they're not worth it. Yeah.
I think there's terrible. 1 year of stuff that's worth it.
The growth, the amount of money from a financial standpoint, the amount of money that it costs to go to university to get a degree versus the quality change. Like if you looked at the delta of how much has changed in the last 30 years, the ratio with which it's gotten more expensive, but the quality of education has not. It's kind of like the same thing as like the cost of living, but wages have not gone up in the same ratio, right, which is really causing a lot of problems. It's the same idea, right? Where it's like you're charging $120,000 for the same degree that someone would have taken 30 years ago, but it's not like you're teaching them 30 times, better information about how that works. No. And they have electives of things that aren't important, that aren't going to really serve you. And it's like, why? Not a financial literacy class in high school. Nothing that's required in college. No, but you do have to take this stupid rhetoric writing course. Not that that's not important. If you're an English major, that's huge, right? But if you're an accounting major, why are you reading, Truman Capote for your elective your freshman year? Maybe you should be taking a personal finance class that's required because that's important.
No, right.
That's my soapbox on that.
No, I know. Well, I think if we taught the entire population financial literacy, there would just sort of almost be there wouldn't be enough people to work the jobs that people need them to work, I guess, is the tech. That's sort of my hot take on
it's just because you want to know what? Here's my hot take. I'm with you. That's exactly why. The hot take is if you teach people the rules, then they will win, then they'll start winning the game. And then that means that somebody's got to start losing the game. And the people that are going to lose the game are the people who are already completely winning the game, right? And listen, I don't necessarily agree with this. I don't agree with what I'm about to say. I just live in Portland, and I hear this on coffee shops. I hear this with people you meet with which for the most part I disagree with. But this is why people are starting to complain about capitalism here in these parts or in like major cities, because it's like it's really just a big game of Monopoly, and we're starting to get to the point where by going around, the $200 that you collect aren't enough to kind of make it back around the board again. We're starting to get to that part of capitalism. So I see and understand. However, I don't agree with the solutions, but I do agree with you that I've always said any political problems that we have, any social problems that we have in this country, anything, it would be solved with education, and education, not like go to school and go to college. I'm talking about legitimate, tangible, usable, not just financial literacy, emotional literacy, like the ability to understand yourself, understand what's happening in the world, understand, right? Like I cost of citizenship, right? That's the name of the book. I became a citizen. If you ask most people how the government works, they don't know. And like, how are you going to be able to like maneuver something that you don't understand the rules for? That's like you're being asked, what I'm saying? As a civic person, you're being asked to play a game that you don't know the rules for. And it's not that you have a choice. You're going to play the game, right? You have to get a job. You have to buy a house or rent somewhere. Like you have to use money. And if you have to use money, but you don't know the rules of how money works, you're so far at a disadvantage. It's terrible.
Yeah. And if you think about like the emotional literacy part that you're saying too, like this would be something that I'd want to put into this, awesome alternative to college, I guess. It's just like self-awareness, because people don't realize it. Like the stats are really clear that if you have like a high school education, like you're making enough money probably as long as you have a job, right? And it's the reason people struggle with building any sort of wealth or having the ability to free up and be less stressed, right? It has to do with the fact that they're making emotional decisions all the time. We're emotional creatures, we're buying these certain things,
but nobody's taught them to not do that.
It's the point. I
Yeah.
agree with you. It's the whole point. But
Yeah.
so in the beginning of my book, it talks about how impact matters. And so like I actually go through and compare like, the cigarette industry to something else of like, okay, you can, while making money's not wrong ever. Like, I don't think making money's wrong unless it's at the expense of human life, right? Or like causes people to have worse lives. And so I think, man, what are the stats? We have to look this up. You should pull them up if you can.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can, but I think tobacco companies making billions and billions and billions of dollars are the direct cause of death for like millions of people a year. I just make the argument that, hey, like you're not a really great company if there's any part of it, like if you're killing people, it's like
Yeah.
not a great thing. And again,
You're
people
talking
just
about
don't
like how tobacco kills people, or are you talking about
yeah,
like the industry itself to
tobacco,
produce it?
tobacco. Yeah, the industry itself is like, it's like the idea that the tobacco industry is ever a net positive is just
Yeah.
not there. But you can make money.
Tobacco kills more than 8 million people each year. This is according to the World Health Organization, including an
Yes.
estimated 1.3 million non-smokers that are exposed to secondhand smoke.
That's the crazy thing about the butterfly effect. Can be positive or negative, right? Well, you're smoking and just killing, what is that, 20 something percent almost, or 10%? 15% of people who die from smoking didn't even choose to smoke. It's like, that's a wild thing.
Yeah.
But
And then you have things like, I mean, this is now really getting into like some weeds, but like, every time you use an iPhone, someone else had to like suffer.
Cobalt. Man, have you heard the Joe Rogan Cobalt?
Yeah. Like that, where it's like, okay, what do we do with that? Because that's happening. That's not happening. And it's like, what the hell do we do with that? People are suffering immeasurably elsewhere.
No,
because we're exploiting that, and we know that.
No, I know.
It's wild.
Have you seen The Fall of the House of Usher on Netflix?
Not yet.
Oh my gosh, dude, that's a wild ride. Some crazy gory stuff, but it's really good. Edgar Allan Poe's stuff is really good. If you don't know what The Fall of the House of Usher is, if you're listening to this, but it's a little Netflix series based on Edgar Allan Poe, and the last one literally is just it's showing like a pharmaceutical industry. That's the family that owns billions of dollars throughout the whole show series. And it's really great timing with the COVID pandemic that just came out. Obviously,
I heard about that flu that went around.
Yeah, but basically, right, they came out with this drug that basically was addictive to people, and they made billions and billions and billions, but it ended up showing how many people died because of it and the influence that it had. And the whole point is that there's this, I don't know if she's a demon, whatever, I don't know, she's some spirit thing, right? And she's basically talking about humans are so funny because if they just pooled their resources and actually did solve problems, it would.
Oh my god,
there's enough money.
Dude, I had this beef in this conversation when the Catholics aren't going to like this, but so sorry if you're Catholic, but when the Notre Dame thing burnt down like 4 or 5 years ago in Paris, remember? Because the church caught on fire.
Yeah.
Okay, within 48 hours, enough people in the world donated enough money that they had like $2 billion raised or something like that. And in my head, I'm like, holy cow. How many world problems could we solve if we just all did that? And they did this in 2 days. In 2 days, they raised $2 billion or whatever. And I'm like, bro, for a church, for an old church, and I get that symbolism, and I'm not trying to minimize people's like impact or attachment to a building that has religious impact. I'm just saying, if we could, it just showed that we can fix the church, and also 2 days later, we can come up with another $2 billion to fix something else. You know what I'm saying?
I think there's an argument to say, and this is again not to hurt anybody's feelings or whatever, because I'm Christian. I still think there's an argument to say that Jesus would have rather just like given money to the poor or something, though.
Yeah,
it's a building,
exactly. Like if you put him in 2020 whatever, and you're like, hey, we have $2 billion. Should we fix this building that's super old to worship you, or should we? But you see all these homeless people here in Paris, even just by the way, I was just in Paris, so I can tell you there are a lot of them, and you're like. You see all these hungry people that can't feed themselves and they're like on the street. Should we give it a little bit to them, or should we rebuild the church?
Yeah,
be like,
at the heart of the message is help people.
Give
So
it to those people.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. And but it's interesting though, because it's I don't think it's not as simple as just I think, hey, let's go fundraise for this stuff, because teaching people to fish versus just giving fish away, right, is an
Oh
interesting
yeah.
concept, right? So it's a super complex. I'm not saying that like, man, we should just pool our money, because there's corruption.
Yeah.
There's so much corruption. It's like, who do we give the money to that's actually going to steward it well?
Yeah.
Like,
Because we
that's a
suck
huge
as a
problem.
species overall sometimes.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there's greed. Like the root of evil is greed, right? So it's like, this idea of like, oh yes, let's go put it into the World Health Organization forever. But we just saw that
They're
they seem
corrupt. Yeah.
dishonest. They're very corrupt. And if let's give it to the U.S. government. There's
They're
some
also corrupt. They're all
financial
corrupt.
things happening right now, right? So okay, let's
Yeah.
give it to this. Or what organization do we give it to? And that's the problem, right? It's like there's too much corruption. If we pool so much money together, there's going to be somebody who steals it.
Well, but the thing is, they're going to steal it anyway. Like the people that raise it, whoever runs the church, whoever got
Do
the
you make
money
it
for the
easier?
church,
Do you make
they
it
stole
easier
it
for
too.
them? Well, I mean, maybe, right? I don't know.
It's not like the priests of the church went, "Oh, this is the place where the money is going to be saved."
Yeah.
We all know Catholic priests haven't been the safest of people in this.
Yeah,
Not to offense.
Sure,
We all saw Spotlight,
Yeah.
and so
I've never seen that. But
you should watch Spotlight. It's
there's
wild.
Is it wild? Oh
Yeah.
god, man.
Anyway, my point is like, I agree with what you're saying about teaching people to fish, because there is something to be able to. But in order for people to even be able to learn to fish, they need to be able to like have a place to sleep. You know what I mean? So
I
like,
agree.
you can't just teach the people who make cobalt in the Congo to fish. There's a few steps before we can take them to school of fishing, like
Yeah.
getting them clothes, a safe environment, not
Yeah,
a
man.
death trap to die in. That is insane. When I
It's
watched that episode, I was like, what in the world?
It's such an incredibly huge problem too. It's like, I don't know. It's overwhelming. But yeah,
How do you even start making a dent on? You think of more like elephant. You're like, bro, where's the spoon? I don't even know how to begin to tackle this problem. And here's the thing. That's why I'm glad I'm not the one in charge, because when you talk about like shining, that's why I could never be a president, or like a world leader, because it's just like, bro, I don't even know. Because here's another thing. You help the people at the cobalt mines, and then a whole different group of people are like, well, what about the kids that are being sex trafficked? And you're like, oh, crap, you're right. There's a whole problem there. So then you address that problem, and it's like, well, what about all that? And you're like, there's
so many problems,
How?
I agree. I know, right? I agree. Boy, and that sex trafficking stuff is wild, man. You go
Also,
research on that. Oh my gosh. Did you see the Sound of Freedom?
No. I see you're giving me all these things I need to look up. Send me all these by text, by the way.
Sound of Freedom's free, I think. I don't know if it's free or not, but they did free or $2 showings.
Ironic if it's not though, right? The Sound of Freedom, if it wasn't free.
Sound of Freedom. Yeah, right. Man, oh my gosh, dude. But that's a hard movie. Like, it's not something you're not gonna leave smiling whatsoever, but it's rough, man. It
just came out this year.
It just came out this year. I did an episode on it actually. They did a really good marketing job. We did a little marketing video on it. But man, that movie's about this guy, this CIA. Was he CIA? He must have been CIA, and he basically busted 2 or 3 or multiple like high end sex trafficking hotels, like different countries in South America and stuff, and just wild.
There it is. After rescuing a boy from a ruthless child trafficker, a federal agent learns the boy's sister is still captive and decides to embark on a dangerous mission to save her. With time running out, he quits his job and journeys deep into the Colombian jungle. Hello, everyone. Putting his life on the line to free her from the fate worse than death. Yeah, stuff like that. I mean, you hear about these stories and you're like, I mean, and even if this is a fictional story, it's
true story.
It's based on true story. Oh, even worse.
100% true.
Oh,
100% true.
So even worse, man. That's like that stuff is happening daily.
And here's the thing that I was just saying about like how, like, who do you know to give the money to? Because this is wild. You watch the movie at the very end, it's got a clip. Okay, if you can go research this too. But they were trying to release this movie like 20 years ago, or 15 or 10 years or 5 years. Some very long time ago, they were trying to release this movie, and they couldn't get past any red tape from like the government and stuff to like let it out and stuff.
Yeah, see, like
I'm
that.
Not kidding.
Like what do you do with that? What do you do with that?
Well, if you the Jeffrey Epstein man. I don't know if we talked about this
Exactly.
before. The Jeffrey Epstein, and if you don't know Jeffrey Epstein or like read that story, I really do encourage you to go read about it.
I think people listening to this would have heard about that.
They're probably
that was
right?
huge. It is still huge.
How, I don't understand because a list of names came out, right?
Yeah.
A list of names actually came out, and nobody talked to these people.
Nobody. And it's like people we know. It's like it's not like
very A-list names,
like Clinton and Trump. And it doesn't even matter if you're
Yeah.
red or blue, Republican.
Yeah, like forget about
not to
that
make
for
it
a second.
political. No, just
Just
across the way. Like
Yeah, like
anybody in that area, whoever went to that island, was like, why are you over there? Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Wasn't Tom Hanks on there? Like,
I don't know, man, but
it's shushed. It's shushed. Okay, you want to get really, really crazy theory? My theory is when shit like that happens and people are about to get exposed, that's when school shootings happen, or like that kind of stuff. Because somebody pointed out
that's a hot take for sure.
Let me tell you, listen. I don't believe in all these conspiracy theories, and there's a comic that talks about this. He's like, you don't believe in any conspiracy theories because that's a strong chance to take. You think the government's just batting 1,000, telling us the truth? But anyway, I'm not saying that that's exactly what happens. I'm just saying that I remember there was somebody that pointed out that when the Epstein trial and stuff was with Ghislaine Maxwell or whatever was all happening. Or not even a school shooting happens, but that's when Taylor Swift starts dating Travis Kelce, or that's when Kanye West starts saying a bunch of anti-Semitic stuff. Because when she was going through trial and then all that stuff, dude, you would expect that to be front page on all of the major newspapers. You would have expected that to be like the front leading story on both CNN and Fox. Nothing. It was like the 8th page on the New York Times, and at the front it was like, I don't know, Kanye West says Jews suck or whatever, you know, or like, and it's like, who cares what Kanye West? I mean, that's important, and anti-Semitism should be stopped. But like, this is like, oh my gosh, this is major news. Like, a lot of people are being exposed here who are in politics, and nobody's saying anything about it. Crazy stuff. So my point is, I feel like there's like big things that happen like that, not just school shootings. I'm just saying like things like that get swept under the rug. You're like, where? Think about this. When's the last time you heard anything about Ghislaine Maxwell?
Dude, I haven't heard anything about her in a while, but I remember digging through and reading that article. Like
exactly. And if you Google it, you have to like try to find it. But if you look up Taylor Swift, we find her latest outfit at the Chiefs game because Travis Kelce said she looked cute or whatever. And you're like, who cares about that? Ugh.
Well, anyway. Like you said, people don't know the rules. They don't know what's happening, and ignorance is bliss. So people will, I bet you, and I don't know, I'm not saying about you, but hopefully you do go watch The Sound of Freedom. But The Sound of Freedom is a brutal movie about sex trafficking. And just by people knowing, oh, it's about sex trafficking, I'm not going to watch it. It's because ignorance is bliss, right? If we don't know the problems exist, right? We don't spend our money there, right? You know,
and we put it on the church.
We put it on the whatever, you know. But think of like, let's just use a U.S. example, right? So Bud Light does that crazy thing. I did a whole episode about how this was a marketing disaster to have.
Right.
Boy, what's her name? I can't recall her name. His name.
Yeah. Whatever. The transgender. Yeah.
You know, and no disrespect to this person, whatever. I don't know what's going on. But the whole point being that putting that again, you know, that basically showed people that there's like a problem, and then they all used their money elsewhere because they were like, well, we disagree with this, right? And that's obviously a terrible marketing mistake, and that's what I put in the video. But if you go learn about Sound of Freedom, right? If you were to learn more about like child sex trafficking, and you found out that a business, you know, was not in support of freeing children from something, right? Then you might not go watch or spend your money there, and which would probably help the problem, right? Or help solve the problem, right?
Yeah,
that's the idea. But it's kind of ugly, and it's no fun, you know.
No.
There's a movie called Unplanned. You ever heard of Unplanned?
No. See, you're giving me all these movies, so I gotta watch
it. It's a Christian movie, and it is what's the Right to Life movie? It's like a life. What's the why can't I think of this?
Pro-life. As one of the youngest Planned Parenthood clinic directors in the nation, Abby Johnson believed in a woman's right to choose until a life-changing experience turns her into an anti-abortion activist. Oh, interesting.
It's a very interesting. So she was the youngest, Planned Parenthood. Boy, you learn a lot about Planned Parenthood in this movie. And when you go read up about Planned Parenthood, that's also interesting. thing that you
Yeah.
can go read about. But basically, it shows like it's pretty brutal. It shows like an abortion happened. You're like,
Yeah, it's intense.
pretty intense. So, I
Ab-
just I think ignorance is bliss, right? We don't care about things unless we actually have seen it and feel the sort of
Yeah.
the yucky side of it,
Yeah, that's why they bring the puppies to your face at the grocery store. You know what I'm saying? When
Right.
like the foster humane society, they'll bring all the little cute puppies. Like, look, you got to put the problem in front of people's faces, otherwise they're not going to care.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And if anything, to bring this back full circle, that would be the only reason I would want to promote my book.
yeah.
Is for that, because my book would show the problem in the immigration system and be like, all right. By the way, we've buzzed around a lot of different topics. I'm proud of ourselves here, but but my point is like, because I did have one. This is I'm just gonna use his first name. Nobody would know him anyway. But I was going door to door for a different company, and
Traitor. No, I'm just kidding.
that's right. If you're listening, quit Southwestern now.
No.
Why not, right? Why not say
Solar.
that?
Go solar.
Yeah, go sell solar. Go sell solar insurance with Cardinal Senior Benefits, or sell real estate with Southwestern Real Estate. They're our sponsors, but not for this episode. I'm just throwing that one in there for free. By the way, shout out Enlight Energy. By the way, that is who I went to work with, Enlight Energy, and it was Alex Black, and he's got a really good rapport with his client. So we're going to visit him for the second time, and he starts talking that I wrote a book, and the guy reads it. I'm only telling you this because I was there selling for a couple weeks. Guy buys the book, reads it, and then invites us back before I have to go back, and he takes me out to lunch, and he apologizes, and he goes, "Hey, I'm so sorry. As a white man living in Florida, I had no idea that it was like that, and I didn't know that it was this hard, and so now I have so much more respect for the immigrant community. If you really changed my views on how I feel about immigration." And I was like, what? So kind of like we were talking about the impact. So if I could have that happen a lot of times, then that's the only time I'd ever want to promote my books. Now, case point for you. Good job.
Right there, right? Go ahead.
That's my potential.
Your book reminds me a lot of American Dirt. No, I've not read your book.
It's like that.
It's exactly like that. So I read I listened to American Dirt, but that's a wild, man. That's just, it's just the corrupt. Again, we go back to corruption, right? Just like, wow, cartels, right? Whew. American Dirt, woman grows up in this city, good husband, but he's like a reporter. Guy gets just offed by the cartel, and then she's on a run for her life with her daughter, her daughter, and then they meet another young lady or whatever, and they're trying to get to the U.S., man, and that is a wild story. And it's wild because I listened to that book, and then I play soccer a bunch, and so I met this awesome guy, which I won't say his name, but he ends up being a prospect for a business. He owns a business. He lives here. He's from a Central American or a country I cannot think of. It's not Nicaragua. It's whatever. It'll come to me later.
Probably
El Salvador, maybe. Could be El Salvador. Anyway, but he literally described the same thing as the book, and I was like, whoa, that is crazy.
And that's my book.
Yeah, no, exactly, right? So it's like, everyone's experienced that. So it's just important to know that, like, what people are running from. And, there's some, not so great people trying to probably do things nefariously through some immigration stuff, right?
Listen, as a Colombian, you don't have to tell me.
Yeah,
I know.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I am aware.
Yeah, right. So, but the whole idea is that, like, obviously you're fleeing for your life. I get it.
Yeah. And those books, my book, that book, your buddy's story, that's the answer to the question, why don't they just come here legally? Because the number of times I've heard that in my life, like growing up, it's like, why don't immigrants just come here legally? And it's like, that's why, man. It's because we're running. It's not like you just go, oh, look at the time.
Yeah.
Cartels after us. What do you think? Maybe we should. And by the way, most people do come here legally. They just stay illegally. It's a whole different conversation. But anyway, that to be said, all that is, it goes back to your point. Your point, which you made very aptly, is ignorance is bliss. And sometimes people want to hide from that. I had a lot of parents go, I would love to show my kids your book, but you use cuss words, or it's like too graphic. Like it's really intense for my 9-year-old. I'm like, lady, I was 7 and I lived it. You're telling me your 9-year-old can't handle reading it? That's a problem. That's the point. It's hard.
Right.
And it sucks.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's like we all want our kids and stuff to have a better life, of course. And so we think that shielding them from stuff is like going to help. And, obviously who would want their kids to grow up in a situation like described in American Dirt, obviously, right? So you want to shield it. So why would we not shield, this, and it was actually a son, by the way. American Dirt. It was a son. I think she had a son.
Is her kid? Is her boy?
Their kid. Yeah, I think it was this boy. I can't recall. Maybe they're two girls. Whatever. But the point being that we obviously we overshield. You know, the helicopter parent of the millennials, or is that the millennials? Or
Yeah.
These, you know, the helicopter parent, right?
Yeah. Now, are you a dad? You just became a dad, right?
No, I did not become a dad.
Oh, sorry. Who am I thinking of that was young?
Man, I'm not sure who.
Everybody's becoming a dad. Yeah, I know, dude.
Young kids. So I mean, I don't know where we would. You know, we'd love to have some kids soon, but
how would you approach that? How would you approach not being a helicopter parent, but still trying to give your kids a better life? No, you know, this is funny because we're having this conversation.
I want to challenge my child to do hard stuff and not give handouts to them, because I want them to learn the grit. You know, I don't. You know, did they have to be the most successful person in the world? No, but I will teach them how to figure out their purpose and help them figure out their purpose by the age of 18. So that way they know which direction they want to go. And so that seems to me to be the thing. Make them do hard stuff, you know, yeah. Lots of sports, whatever. You know, selling door to door would be a great thing, I think. For them.
You'd have your kids sell?
Yeah, man. Absolutely. I would have them sell, and just, I've had there's multiple stories in the book from selling books for my first summer, you know, more from my first summer than anything else I think I talk about in there. There's two or three stories from first summer. And I've got a story from going on a mission trip with Trey Campbell. It was all Southwestern, you know, that's how that happened. But Southwestern people, there's a story about recruiting, you know, and then a lot of the stuff I taught my rookies, I frankly teach a bunch of these multimillionaires, and it works. So it's you know, there's the principles are solid. So it's it's like having them go through and make stuff happen. Just learning that mindset that, guys, it's not what you're selling. It's not your area, right? It's you. It is just you. You are the reason you succeed or fail. And if they can get that through their head and learn how to overcome it, right? And how to be consistent and work hard and do anything they want in their life. So yeah, I'd like for them to do hard stuff, and I want them to hit those walls, and I want them to cry. I want them to cry. I want them to come to terms with, I'm a selfish person. Exactly. And but I need to stop being a selfish person. I need to go help people, because that's what got me through my first summer and the other 6 summers, and recruiting, because I just wanted other people to, again, I didn't want to hoard my experience. I wanted other people to have the same realizations I did.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Ooh, I like that. Yeah. Okay, here's the deal. I feel like this is a good pausing point. So what I'm going to ask you to do, this is going to be totally tangential, but because it's ponytails, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you for at least a good pony story before we wrap up. So
hang on.
I need you to think of a good ponytail. And again, so I'm going to give you ideas by asking you rapid fire questions that might jog your memory. So
okay.
So these are rapid fire questions. I don't think we got through these last time, so it's worth asking you. By the way, anybody listening, they're like, whoa, this is a total change of gears. It is, but also a good episode knows when it's the juice is right. You don't want to make it go too long. You want to make it long. Right. Yeah. You want to give it. Yeah, and I want to leave them wanting more.
Yeah, that's right.
So plus, that's right. There's that. On that note, as we're pulling up these rapid fire questions, if you guys are enjoying this, please go check out our Patreon. We are switching over from having sponsors to having a Patreon. It's going to be a bit of a slow build up, but our goal is to have 1,000 people donating on Patreon. If you guys have $3 a month that you want to just give away for fun, yay, you get nothing. $5, you also get nothing. $15, we're working on a perk. We don't know what that is yet, but just give us that money anyway, because you're not doing anything with it. And I am getting over the discomfort of asking for money, but you know what? It's for y'all. And the goal and the bigger perks is that people who are in our Patreon get to decide the future of the show. So not just what guests to bring on, but also kind of the format. If you want specific questions that we should start asking, we will let you do that. So, if you have more influence and agency in what happens to the show, do go there. All right, my man. Rapid fire question number 1. Now think back on your time. This is going to help you jog your memory, but what was your favorite territory that you sold in your 7 summers? State-wise.
Yeah, Southwestern Virginia. Absolute best place to sell. Loved it.
That sounds like some good territory.
Amazing.
Your favorite turf, kind of turf. So country, big break, suburbia, way spread out country, low income country, high income country.
This will be the cockiest thing I say, but I'm actually just good at it all.
Hey, you know what?
I hated real poor turf, I guess. The really, really, I just skipped that stuff, to be honest with you.
That is not a cocky thing.
Yeah,
The
I
only
was just
when
good at it all.
territory matters unless it's like someone like you who like just enjoys working all of it, then that's when territory doesn't matter. But territory,
Yeah.
because so that's some people are like that. That's great.
Yeah,
Favorite,
I mean, it's all strategy, man. It's all strategy. But Big Brook at the end of the summer, and you'll like it just as much as Country at the beginning of the summer.
yeah, amen to that. Heard that strategy.
Strategy is it.
Fave advanced sales.
Favorite advanced sales, man. I always really liked Kevin Johnson's advanced sales, where he goes through the pain funnel.
Yeah, we're gonna have KJ on here shortly on the podcast, so I'm excited for that episode because he's got some good stuff.
I would love to meet him. I would love to meet him. He's somebody I haven't met.
KJ is the man. Okay, favorite HQ.
Favorite HQ. I'll give two answers. My second summer was my favorite HQ in productivity because we all hit Sizzler and it was awesome. And there's me, a B, and two rookies, and we hit combined 10,000 units as 18 and 19-year-olds was pretty freaking awesome. So that was a great, just productive, fun. We had a blast. And then my best summer was an incredible HQ that Kyle Scheel found. He just met this amazing couple, and they gave us the entire third floor. And they were just the nicest people, and they fostered kids, and they had like birthday parties and stuff. And they were just so nice, man. It was just, I could have sold and lived there forever. Like, it was fine. Never needed to leave. It was awesome.
Gotta love that. You gotta love a whole like third floor to yourself HQ. That's good.
Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah, amazing.
Favorite breakfast spot.
Oh my gosh, favorite breakfast spot? That summer with the best HQ was the worst breakfast spot. I think we had the only thing in town. Man, well, it's the middle of nowhere. So you're on this river, you like going between mountains in Southwest Virginia, and it's beautiful every morning. You're just like, such a relaxing hour drive to Turf. But all they had was Hardee's. You're just eating Hardee's every morning for 3 months. You're just like, God, that was awful, man. The way to get to that HQ too, I slept on a couch for 3 weeks. We had a crummy hotel for 2 weeks. It took like half the summer to get it there, but that HQ was awesome. But yeah, so the best place, was it Tom's Diner? I had this one diner, I can't remember, it was Tom's something, I don't know, but it was in Coweta, Oklahoma. And the guy was super nice. He bought a whole kid set from me, and it was just really good food, and a great little spot right in my turf. So that was probably my favorite little breakfast spot.
Let me look up Coweta Highway Cafe, Hatch Clanton's Cafe,
Tom
and Coweta, Cowpokes, Bev's.
Old Facebook 2,000 pictures ago,
I always like pulling up. It was in Coweta, you said? How do you spell Coweta?
Coweta. Coweta.
Coweta. I've never heard of Coweta. Oh, there's not that many. Mark's Place,
man. Mark was so nice. He was like, what? His native tongue was Farsi or something. He was a cool dude.
He was from Iran?
Something Iran, maybe one of those Middle Eastern countries. Yes, he was a nice guy. I think his wife I think I met his wife. Somehow he bought the whole set for me. It was awesome. I went in there before that was like my 7:29 start time,
Yeah.
One day, and they just bought everything. It was awesome.
Is it this? Oh wait.
Yeah, dude, that was it. That's Mark's Place, man. It was good.
Look at that. This kid agrees. Wow.
Yeah.
Gotta love that.
I love that. Man.
Cool. I gotta go back to this. Okay, and then favorite follow day. These are good answers, by the way. I love these questions. Man, this is where I just really believe it's all in your head. But I've never had a follow day. I only have been followed. Well, yeah. So favorite day that someone followed you, that could also work. Okay, that could work. Okay, because my first summer I only followed Zach. Like he came and worked with me twice for a half day, and that's all I've never seen another person sell other than watching them like for a couple hours. Nice. So my favorite follow day, man, there's a lot of fun ones. I think my second summer I had a lot of enjoyable ones, but there were just some crazy follow days. Every time, this is funny. Every time my brother Josh, who's older than me, follows me, I always have a 250 unit day or something wild. So those are always just like sibling follow days are the best.
Yeah, like we're just hanging out, and he's like so respectful, but he's so funny. He's like eating these like nuts all day. That's like how he would stack. So he's just chopping all day. we're just working. I'm like running around and just like everyone buys. And he's just like always like, what are you doing? Like, how does this work? Yeah, I don't know. I had a lot of good follow days that I probably need to go back on memory lane and think up. But I don't know. There's some where, I had a manager following me and just like multiple approaching. I was always so good at just being likable and approaching like 4 times sometimes in a way that they're laughing and just lead to sales. So I remember this guy, Carter West, that I followed me my second summer, and we had like this one lady buy 6 set after she told me no like 5 times, and just just fun. I remember hawking. By hawking, I mean just like at the door, be like, see this superintendent next door, like, hey, I'll send you, how 500 CDAs for like 20 grand, like you into that, it was that kind of day. Or you're just going for stuff.
Just shooting high because why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the actual price, but I think I like did it in my head of like so many thousands of dollars. I'll give you a discount if you get that many,
Love that.
Fun.
Favorite off schedule story if you have one.
Dude, I've never been off schedule.
Boo.
In the entire 6 summers of selling. The only thing I did, I was buying a house while I was selling, and my wife needed me to drop off some papers. That's such a lame off schedule.
That's the only thing you did? You didn't have a full Southwestern experience then.
One day in 6 summers, I was like morbidly sick, and I slept until the last 2 goal periods, and I went and I sold 100 units in 4 hours, and then it was like 8 o'clock. I'm like texting Matt Ross, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go home. I sold 100 units. I'm so exhausted. I slept all day. Other than that, I guess that's cool.
That works.
Yeah.
Least favorite sales off schedule story then that's what that is.
Yeah,
favorite sales day.
Favorite sales day, man. Oh, good question. I don't know. So I've had a couple 300 something unit days, which isn't even that impressive to some people, but those days were like blurs. Absolute blurs. I don't know. It's just the absolute favorite day. I can't even recall. I think the first time I hit Mort was pretty freaking cool. I worked hard that day. Although my best week, I hit like 1,500 units in a week. So I think every day that week was probably my favorite day. Like averaging, like
it's most fun.
250 a day was like weird. I think every day that week was over 200. It was crazy. So
that's
I'm trying
to.
Yeah. 2020, baby. I love the COVID. The COVID summer was the best.
The bat summer. The year of the pandy.
Yeah, that was amazing, dude. It was the best place ever to sell.
And then the last one is most famous person you ever met.
I met a guy in Oklahoma who was on TV, and I do not recall his name, but he's on TV, and he's like a hunter. He's a hunter, and he's on this hunter series. I think everyone knew who he was in that area, and I think he's nationally known, but I cannot remember his name for the life of me. And there's a picture of me with him and his family somewhere on my Facebook.
And he bought books.
And he bought books. Yeah, man. I don't know what his name is, but it's a famous hunting show, and they have like, yeah, it's big. Like I think it was big. Like a lot of people watch it in that like hunting community. So that was probably the most famous person I met. Sort of just like local people who are wealthy or something.
Hell yeah. That concludes the rapid fire questions. Did that jog your memory a little bit of something that you can share with us as far as like a cool ponytail? And for people listening, we have and then they bought stories, right? Where it's like you didn't think they're going to buy and then they bought. There's that blue light award stories where you either got arrested, almost got arrested, then right? Then there's the Sizzler stories. Those are always fun. There's recruiting stories. There's how I met my wife or husband stories. There's big package stories. There is funny HQ stories. There's I almost quit and then didn't stories. Any of those ring a bell?
The almost quit but I didn't story is in the book, so I'm gonna like save that for who wants to buy.
Give him that sizzle. Give him that. Which, by the way, you can purchase the book by going to the link below. Scroll down, or you can just go to joeignace.com/the problem with potential.
So I'm not going to share that one because that one's going to be out there all over the place. But there is this one that I did not put in there, which may end up being in a future book. But it's a story about it was in my second summer. Man, my second summer was a roller coaster. I was in a great summer. In the last 2 weeks, I had this crazy client messaged me because she like scheduled some payment, but I didn't know as a B manager how to like pull up someone's form and signature that they bought stuff. So I went through this like text message battle with someone because that card got charged, and that was stupid because she screenshot that and it just blew up the last 2 weeks of my second summer. Sucked. It was awful. Everyone was just hating on me. And I had a previous client who had paid in full, and they owned a vape shop, maybe. I don't know. They owned something in town, like a vape shop. Everyone knew who they were. And they put up signs in their vape shop that, hey, if you hear of Joe the Bookman, he steals money or something. Oh my gosh.
Not good.
Wild. They were like commenting on things. They texted me a bunch to try to cancel, but like they had paid me months ago. I just didn't have books at the time or something. So it's like way past any semblance of cancellation, like a week before delivery. So they've been signed up for like 50 days, right? Or something wild. So I'm not gonna refund. No, Walmart refund you right now. Like I'm gonna bring the books, And I remember the anxiety of going to that house, just driving. They're out in the country, they're building like this nice house and building this manicured lawn, whatever, and it was like a double wide that they were like reconstructing into a house or something. And I remember, man, driving there with the books, or like one of my last stops, and the whole summer. And they literally like crucified me on Facebook for 2 weeks, 3 weeks straight. Just crazy. I think they texted me like, we're telling everyone not to buy from you because you're a crook. I think they said that to me. And I'm coming back to their house.
Cool.
Yeah, bro.
Thanks.
So I'm like, this is crazy. And so I coming up before school starts, 7:30 on like August sometime, right? Like first house, dues on, I'm carrying that big tub. They bought a lot of books, like $1,300 the first time, when I met them.
This is the vape shop people, just to be clear.
The vape shop people.
Okay.
They got like 7 kids, right? So I remember knocking, and you're doing things, oh, this is heavy. And she answers the door looking like, if you can't see, if this is audio only, they're just staring at me. The mom is just,
they got mad. The American Gothic look, just
angry that I was there, and so the dad, I think, was with the kids. He seemed totally normal, like he didn't care at all, But I remember coming in, sitting down on their couch I remember it like it was yesterday, and all the kids are sitting on the couch getting ready for school. They're like, the books are here, and they all try to like come over and like touch stuff, and the mom just gives them a look, and they all sit down, and the dad leaves with the kids to then go drop them off at school. And so I was hoping everyone would be there, and then everyone leaves. It's me and this mom on this couch. And I'm just like, hearts in the throat, man. Just like, whoa, sweating, just like, so I get on the floor, to kind of, that psychology of being beneath. So that way someone, so I get on the floor, and we proceed to basically have a heart-to-heart of what actually happened, right? And she's just staring at me, and I'm like, hey, I know you're upset. I know that you probably,
big crew job here.
Big crew job. Now she had paid, so it was me dropping off books, but I wanted, I was going to fix this because that Facebook stuff, man, that really grinds my gears, man. When people say things about people online that are just not true, and it wasn't true. Like this lady bought, like the reason this happened, I just started explaining this to her, is because this lady had bought books. She forgot about her order. She had scheduled a payment. And then I at this point, I think, knew how to pull up the order, and I showed it to her. I don't even know if I showed it, to be honest with you, but she had. And so I canceled, gave her a refund, and she didn't tell anyone that she got a refund. She just left it out there that I was a crook.
Awesome.
Thanks, lady. Like, what? Come on. Like, just tell them I gave you your money back. So anyway, I explained that. I think I showed that I refunded her or whatever. And slowly this exterior anger, starts to subside, right? It's just like starting to like, because she really liked me at the beginning. She bought so many books for me, right? I'm like, hey, that's not who I am. It's not what I was. And it's just got confused on Facebook, and it sucks that happened. But, that's not real. I have all these other people who bought, and they had no issues, whatever. So eventually she just gets this point. She's like, okay. And I start showing her what she bought, and she starts remembering, and she's like, oh, right, this is really good stuff. And by the end of it, we're literally like in tears of just like, oh, you're like not a terrible person or whatever. She's like apologizing because I just apologized for like 30 minutes. And, I was 19. I was just I was always supposed to show more books. So I showed her more stuff, like the Bible books and all the stuff I didn't show her the first time. And then she just she bought everything else.
Wow.
360, weird. So she ended up having like a $2,500 package, 100 and something units or something. And it was just weird. And it was like, whoa, wild.
The power of being genuine.
Dude, authentic, just go. And just to show the books again too. Like that was the story I always taught my rookies at delivery school. And if they were there for that story, they always seemed to have a decent delivery school. I was like, hey, just show them no matter what. Like, just do your best.
Tell them what you bought. Show them what you bought. Yeah. Thanks,
bro. They were excited about everything. I think they were going to homeschool, whatever. I don't remember. But yeah, I did not think that they were going to buy at all. But they did. They tacked on everything you could tack on, I think. Maybe not the CEA.
Gotta love that. Nice job, sir. Look at you. Crew. That's a crew lesson right there.
Calm. It actually stands for cry. Yeah. And then read demo.
Cry and read demo. CRY. Yeah. Cry.
Yes.
Calm, relax. You can find a way. Yeah. Dude, awesome, man. Hey, this has been a good 2.0 for Joe Ignace. Next up, we have to have you and your brother on here, or you and some of your siblings that some of your fam.
We could have a foursome of Ignaces on.
Let's do it. I'm trying to do siblings. Also, remind me, did your wife sell?
My wife did not sell, but she knew Camden, who had sold 2 summers, and she had been interviewed by Emma Barnett before I met her.
Okay.
So she knew about it.
Because we got to have we're trying to find, and we might have to have tryouts for this or something, or like a little more specific. But I want my wife to host one of these where she interviews people who have spouses who didn't sell. So she interviews their spouses and have like and so I want a bit of a range. So it's like they didn't sell and they're a little bit older. So it's been like 20 years since they sold, but their spouse didn't sell. Maybe one of those where it's like it's someone's husband and then someone's wife, and then maybe someone who, for example, like your wife, who kind of already knew about it, so it was a little easier, but then someone who had no idea, and at the beginning they thought it was a cult or something, you know what I'm saying? Like just like a mix of spouses that didn't sell episode. And I think that'd be very entertaining in my opinion. So maybe I'll hit you up, and if you're listening and your spouse did not sell and you think they'd be good at it, let us know why. We do have to keep it narrowed down so it's not like crazy, but it'd be fun to have like a good mix, and just be like, all right, this is gonna be a funny episode to hear what people have to say.
My wife would have some strong opinions, I think. So
good, even better. Yeah. My wife's a counselor, so she has some interesting.
She's got some ways to get it out of people, I bet too.
So. Yes, it's very interesting. So anyway, okay, to wrap this up, guys, one more time, head over to our Patreon. Link is below to support us. That's just for us. Now, let me just give a little bit more of Joe Ignace, where you can go find him. So you can always go find him, joeignace.com. You can message us on Instagram. You can go find him on Instagram. You can also go find the Knowledge Gap. Are you still doing the podcast? Are you still churning those out?
So the podcast Knowledge Gap on Spotify, but I would recommend you go to youtube.com/@joeignace. That's where I put most of my stuff. We put most of the effort into.
Perfect. If you want to hear more from Joe, go check out his YouTube page. And of course, go over right now to the link below. Buy that book, read it, tell him what you thought about it. He obviously enjoys feedback. So, but for real, if you want to learn a little bit more about behind the scenes and stuff, we did cover some of that stuff here, but make sure you go over to his website and check it out there. If you want to hire him for, maybe you're thinking you need some consulting, of course, you'll find a way to reach us or reach him. There's going to be plenty of opportunities below on the links below on the description notes. And on that note, thank you so much, everybody, for listening. My name's Andres Gamboa. Joe, thank you for being here again, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Had a blast.
Heck yeah. All right, bro. We'll see you guys all on the next one. Bye, everybody.